I still remember the harsh, blinding glow of the auditorium stage lights, just before everything went pitch black. My name is Rachel Anderson, and that moment was supposed to be the proudest milestone of my young life. Instead, it was the day I realized I didn't actually have a family. Before I tell you how I tore down the empire my father spent 40 years building, take a second to drop a comment below and let me know where in the world you're watching from today. I love reading your comments from all over the globe. And if you haven't already, please smash that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell. Trust me, you are not going to want to miss a single detail of this story. It was 72 degrees inside the university center, but I was burning up from the inside out. I had spent the entire week pulling all-nighters, finishing up my final research defense while working 30 hours a week to pay off my remaining tuition balance. My body had given out long before I walked across that stage, but sheer willpower had pushed me up the wooden steps. I smiled for the camera, reached out to shake the dean's hand, and then the world tilted. The deafening cheers of thousands of proud parents dissolved into a low, metallic hum. My knees buckled and I hit the polished mahogany floor before anyone could catch me. When I woke up, the sterile smell of antiseptic and the rhythmical beep of a heart monitor replaced the celebratory chaos of graduation. I was in a private room at the University Medical Center, an IV line taped securely to the back of my hand. A kind, middle-aged nurse noticed my eyes fluttering open and gently called for the attending physician. "Welcome back, Rachel," the doctor said softly, pulling up a rolling stool beside my bed. "You suffered severe physical exhaustion, acute dehydration, and a sharp drop in blood pressure. You've been out for nearly 10 hours. I tried to sit up, but my head pounded violently. My parents. I rasped, my throat raw. Did they? Are they outside? The doctor's posture stiffened slightly. He exchanged a brief, uncomfortable look with the nurse before checking his clipboard. "We called the emergency contact numbers listed on your university file multiple times throughout the afternoon and evening. We left several urgent voicemails informing them that you were hospitalized. And?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper, though deep down I already knew the answer. No one answered, Rachel, and no one has called back. A cold, heavy numbness settled in my chest, far worse than the physical pain racking my body. I reached over to the bedside tray and picked up my phone. No missed calls from my mother. No text messages from my father wishing me congratulations on my degree. Nothing. I unlocked the screen and instinctively opened social media, telling myself I was being paranoid. The very first post at the top of my feed was a high-resolution photo uploaded just 2 hours prior by my younger sister, Sophia. In the picture, my mother, father, and Sophia were sitting on the sun-drenched balcony of a luxury hotel in Paris, sipping champagne with the Eiffel Tower glittering majestically in the background. My mother was beaming, clad in designer silk, while my father held up his glass toward the camera. The caption written by my sister read, "Finally in paradise with the people who matter most." No stress, no drama, just pure family perfection. They hadn't forgotten about my graduation. They hadn't missed the doctor's calls because of an emergency. They had deliberately booked a first-class vacation to Europe on the exact week I was receiving my degree with highest honors, leaving me behind without a second thought. I had spent 4 years grinding to make them proud, working myself into a hospital bed, while they toasted to a life that clearly had no room for me. The nurse looked at me with genuine pity. "Do you want us to try reaching them again on an international line?" "No," I said quietly, staring at the glowing screen. "Don't bother. They know where I am." I stayed silent. I didn't send a furious text. I didn't leave a tearful voicemail asking how they could be so cruel. I didn't drop a single comment on Sophia's picture. I simply closed the app, laid my phone face down on the table, and let the silence wash over me. For the next 3 days, I lay in that hospital room alone, recovering my strength, paying my own medical bill with the small savings I had left, and letting every last drop of filial affection wither away into pure, calculated disgust. If they wanted a life without drama, I was more than happy to give them quiet. But quiet doesn't mean weak. While I lay in that bed, watching the IV drip slowly count down the hours, I made a promise to myself. Rachel Anderson was done begging for a seat at their table. On the 4th morning, the doctor finally signed my release forms. I was packing my small duffel bag, dressed in the same crumpled clothes I had worn on graduation day, when my phone suddenly went ballistic. It didn't just ring once or twice. It vibrated incessantly, rolling across the wooden table like a frantic insect. I picked it up. 65 missed calls. 42 from my father. 18 from my mother. 5 from my sister. Before I could even process the wall of notifications, the screen lit up again with an incoming call from my father. I let it ring until it went to voicemail. A second later, a text message popped up at the top of my screen. It was from Dad. "No, are you okay? No, we heard you were in the hospital. No apology for abandoning me on the biggest day of my life. Just 4 words. We need you now." I stared at those 4 words for a long time. A cruel, calm smile slowly touched my lips. My heart wasn't racing. I didn't feel angry anymore. The pain had entirely burned away, leaving behind a cold, sharp clarity. They had finally realized that the daughter they treated as invisible was the only person who held the keys to their kingdom. I grabbed my bag, looked at my reflection in the hospital mirror, and straightened my collar. I didn't hesitate. I walked out of the hospital, hailed a cab, and set off to give my family exactly what they deserved. The cab ride to my father's corporate headquarters felt like a march toward a battlefield, but for the first time in my life, I wasn't the prey. I was the one holding the match, ready to light the fuse. When I stepped into the glass and steel skyscraper of Anderson Global Logistics, the atmosphere was suffocating. Employees were sprinting between cubicles with armfuls of manila folders, shouting into phones, and looking like the sky was actively falling. The front desk receptionist, a young woman who usually ignored me whenever I dropped off my father's forgotten lunchboxes, looked up with wide, frantic eyes the moment I pushed through the revolving doors. "Rachel," she gasped, leaping out of her chair. "Thank God you're here. Your father is tearing his office apart. Go straight up." I didn't rush. I walked with slow, deliberate steps toward the private executive elevator, scanning the chaos around me with quiet satisfaction. When the double doors opened on the top floor, my father was pacing in front of his floor-to-ceiling windows, his tie loosened, his expensive hair completely disheveled. My mother was weeping silently into a silk handkerchief on the leather sofa, and Sophia was huddled in a corner, frantically refreshing her tablet with a terrifyingly pale face. "Where on earth have you been?" My father roared the instant he saw me, not even offering a glance at my hospital wristband. "I have been calling you for 2 hours. Do you have any idea what is happening right now?" My phone was muted, I said smoothly, folding my arms. I was a bit preoccupied recovering from physical collapse. "But please, tell me why you brought me straight from the hospital." My father flinched slightly at the word hospital, but his panic quickly overpowered his guilt. He threw a stack of financial documents onto the heavy mahogany desk. "The offshore holding accounts," he stammered, his voice trembling in a way I had never heard before. "The one setting up our international distribution network in Europe. The bank froze every single asset 20 minutes ago. The audit team flagged missing compliance sign-offs. And what does that have to do with me?" I asked, keeping my voice completely devoid of emotion. "You have a full team of corporate lawyers and accountants. Sophia is your golden child. Surely she can sort out your Paris affairs." Sophia flinched in the corner, keeping her mouth firmly shut. "Don't play games with me, Rachel," my father snapped, stepping closer, though he hesitated when he saw the icy lack of fear in my eyes. "When we set up the foundation of the European expansion 4 years ago, we used your academic research framework and registered the primary digital authentication protocols under your name to claim the Youth Innovation Tax subsidies. You are the sole registered administrative authority on the master encryption key. Without your biometric sign-off and personal security credentials, the entire firm's liquidity is locked." I stood perfectly still, letting his words hang in the air. 4 years ago, while I was balancing a full course load, my father had asked me to sign a stack of legal documents for a routine student tax rebate. He had told me it was a small favor to lower my tuition burden. In reality, he had used my clean criminal record, top-tier technical credentials, and trust to anchor his multi-million-dollar offshore infrastructure, hiding behind his naive daughter so he could evade standard corporate oversight. He didn't bring me into the family business out of love. He didn't cover my tuition because he was generous. He had used me as an unwitting human shield for his corporate greed, fully prepared to let me take the fall if federal regulators ever caught on. "You need me to sign the override authorization," I said, stating it as a simple fact. "Yes," my father pleaded, dropping all of his usual dominating arrogance. "If you sign it right now, the assets unfreeze, the merger goes through, and our family stays solvent. If you don't, the banks initiate a fraud investigation by noon, and Anderson Logistics goes bankrupt by the end of the week. We will lose everything: the house, the cars, the business. My mother stood up from the couch, running toward me with outstretched hands, tears streaming down her carefully tailored makeup. Rachel, baby, please. We know we made a mistake not being at your little ceremony, but we're your family. We did this for our future. For your future. You have to save us, my little ceremony. Even when begging for their financial lives, they couldn't conceal their contempt for my existence. To them, my 4 years of suffering, working, and fainting on a stage was just a little ceremony that inconveniently interrupted their Paris getaway. I took a slow, deep breath, reached into my bag, and pulled out my tablet. My father's eyes lit up with desperate relief. He quickly thrust a digital stylus into my hand. "That's my good girl," he breathed, trying to fake a reassuring fatherly smile. "Just input your master passkey, scan your fingerprint, and approve the clearance transfer to my main account. Everything goes back to normal." I looked down at the screen. The glowing red prompt of the security portal was staring back at me. Authorization pending. Master administrative override. I locked eyes with my father. I looked at my mother's fake panic. I looked at Sophia, who was still holding her phone, the same phone she used to tell the world that their family was perfect without me. "You're right, Dad," I whispered, my thumb hovering over the glass screen. "It is time to clear the board." I didn't press approve. Instead, with 3 quick, practiced taps, I navigated to the system settings, initiated a permanent administrative revocation protocol, and transferred the entire master encryption key to an independent third-party federal compliance auditor I had secretly contacted from my hospital bed yesterday morning. A harsh yellow warning banner flashed across the tablet. Access rights permanently surrendered to Financial Crimes Enforcement Network. My father's phone instantly rang with a high-pitched emergency alert sound. He snatched the tablet from my hand, his face draining of all color until he looked like a corpse. "What? What did you just do?" He stammered, his body shaking violently. "What is this?" "I didn't unfreeze your accounts, Dad," I said, taking a step back toward the exit. I handed the keys to the authorities. "You wanted no stress and no drama? You won't have to worry about running a business anymore." The office instantly descended into utter, unadulterated madness. My father let out a primal, strangled sob as he dropped the tablet onto the desk. The glass screen shattered into a web of spiderwebs, matching the total destruction of his life's work. My mother shrieked, clutching her face, while Sophia dropped her phone onto the rug, staring at me as if I had suddenly transformed into a monster. "You ruined us!" My father screamed, his eyes bloodshot, charging toward me with a raised hand. "You miserable, ungrateful brat! We gave you a roof over your head, we put food on your table, and you sell us out to the federal government?" "You didn't give me anything," I said, my voice dropping an octave, dead calm and sharp enough to slice through his rage. "I worked 30 hours a week to pay my own tuition. I ate instant noodles in a cold dorm room while you bought Sophia a sports car for her 18th birthday. You didn't give me a home. You gave me a contract, and you used me as an insurance policy for your illegal tax fraud." Before my father could step any closer, the heavy double doors of the executive suite swung open. 4 men in dark, tailored suits walked in without knocking. The man in the lead unclipped a gold badge from his belt and held it up. "Arthur Vance, senior auditor with the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network," the agent announced, his voice booming over my mother's hysterical sobbing. "The building is currently under federal administrative lock. No one leaves, no one touches a computer, and no files are to be deleted." My father froze mid-stride, his face morphing from rage to absolute terror. He looked back and forth between the federal agents and me, his jaw trembling. "There's been a mistake," he stammered, his usual polished charisma crumbling into pathetic desperation. "My daughter. She made an unauthorized system change. She's young, she's confused. Your daughter is the registered administrative whistleblower who just provided us with 4 years of encrypted offshore ledger entries," Agent Vance interrupted coldly. He motioned to the officer behind him. "We have a warrant for the seizure of all Anderson Global Logistics assets, including personal properties, foreign holdings, and domestic accounts pending formal indictment." Sophia began to wail aloud. "Dad, what about my trust fund? What about my apartment in the city?" "There is no trust fund, Sophia," I said, turning to look at my sister for the first time since I walked in. I pulled out my phone and held up her Instagram post from 3 days ago, the picture of them sipping champagne in Paris while I lay unconscious in a hospital bed. You wanted no stress, no drama, just pure family perfection, right? Well, congratulations. You don't have to worry about the family business anymore. I walked right past my sobbing mother and my paralyzed father, stepping calmly toward the exit. As I reached the doorway, my father called out my name one last time, his voice cracked and hollow. Rachel, please, look at me. We're your family. Where are you going to go? You have nothing left. I paused at the threshold, glancing back over my shoulder. I have my degree, Dad, I said with a faint, cold smile. I have my freedom. And for the first time in my life, I don't owe you a single thing. I didn't wait for his response. I walked out of the office, down the grand hallway, and into the waiting elevator. As the doors slid shut, sealing away the sound of my family's complete collapse, I felt a weight lift from my chest that I hadn't even realized I was carrying. 6 months later, the dust finally settled. The news coverage of the Anderson Global Logistics collapse was relentless, but I didn't watch a single broadcast. The corporate assets were liquidated to satisfy millions in unpaid back taxes and federal penalties. The family mansion in the suburbs was auctioned off on the courthouse steps. My father and mother were forced to sell everything down to their designer wardrobes, moving into a tiny 2-bedroom rented apartment on the outskirts of the state while my father awaited his formal sentencing hearing. Sophia had to drop out of her private university and take a job behind the counter at a local coffee shop to pay her own rent. They had sent dozens of emails, written letters, and even tried to reach out through distant relatives, begging for forgiveness or financial assistance. I blocked every single number and marked their emails as spam. They had spent 22 years treating me like an invisible ghost until they needed something from me. Now I was making their wish come true. As for me, I took the research that almost killed me and turned it into something real. Armed with my clean record and top honors, I secured a full scholarship and a paid research fellowship at a prestigious tech firm 2,000 miles away. I live in a quiet, sunlit apartment overlooking the coast. I buy fresh flowers every Sunday. I wake up without the crushing weight of trying to earn the love of people who were incapable of giving it. Standing on my balcony, watching the morning sun reflect off the ocean waves, I sip my coffee in absolute peace. I didn't get the happy, picture-perfect family graduation photo that most people dream of. But as I look down at my framed diploma hanging neatly on my living room wall, I know I got something far better. I got my life back, and I built it entirely on my own terms.